But market forces alone cannot solve larger social issues. And in fact, they can be absolutely merciless if they're not influenced by human values such as integrity, compassion, and appreciation for people and for the environment. Globalization and the advance of technology increase efficiency, but they also contribute to the social crisis that we're seeing in many parts of the world, from the Arab uprising to the protests that formed spontaneously in many European countries and to the Occupy Wall Street movement. Some commentators have begun referring to these times as the age of outrage. In emerging markets, we see people fighting for the peace of the wealth, which is allegedly created by globalization. In mature markets, we see people who have been dislocated, robbed of their jobs, security, and dignity by large global forces that they did not create. Time magazine this year declared the protester as its person of the year. And in explaining its selection, Time wrote, all over the world, the protesters of 2011 share a belief that their country's political systems and economies have grown dysfunctional and corrupt. Sham democracies rigged to favor the rich and powerful and prevent significant change. The fact is that even if we look at this trend only through the lens of business, this anger can have a significant impact. Political instability is disruptive to the economy and it discourages investment. And taking it even to a higher level, a free society that wants to endure has a vested interest in supporting those that are affected by changes caused by movements in the markets. And a factor that has heightened dissatisfaction is the realization that the gap between the rich and the poor has now become a gulf. Anger is further fueled by the fact that some of the main architects of our economic mess walked away unscathed. Some income inequality is a natural result of markets that operate freely. But it is the narrowing of income gaps that creates mass markets for products such as new cars and trucks. According to a study that is recently released by the International Monetary Fund, societies with large income inequalities find it harder to sustain growth. And people on the lower end of the income continuum lack the finances to invest in education and to really engage in entrepreneurial activity. On the other hand, broad-based prosperity provides the fertile ground for longer-term growth. Now, these issues call into question the moral responsibility of our actions. The leaders of Fiat and at Chrysler recognize the need to respond in a way that helps our time become an age of hope and an age of action. And our actions start at home. Our two groups have home countries that are integral to their identities. Fiat has historic ties and a privileged relationship with Italy, and Chrysler owes its continued existence to taxpayers in the US and in Canada. Last month, Fiat unveiled the new Panda that will be built at our Pomigliano plant, and the decision to locate production at our facility in southern Italy was not based on economic or purely rational considerations. It was a decision that was based in part on recognizing a moral duty to protect and to contribute to the welfare of those who live in the communities where we have our roots. And it was also a decision made possible by workers at the plant who chose to join us in the challenge of remaking Italian competitiveness. And at the same time, Chrysler is living up to its commitment to rebuild the auto industry in North America. Since June 2009, we've announced investments totaling $4.5 billion in the US and in Canada, and we have now added more than 9,000 jobs. In December, we announced a plan to reopen the Conner Avenue assembly plant in Detroit to rebuild the next generation SRT Viper, bringing 150 jobs back to the city of Detroit. Now, there's no doubt that this city faces enormous challenges. We're committed to being part of the solution, to working with other stakeholders to reimagine the future and to ultimately transform the city. Not far from here is a memorial to Joe Louis, a hero of both the city and of the nation. It has a 24-foot long arm and fist held in balanced suspension, and it is one of the iconic scenes of Detroit that was featured in our Super Bowl commercial. Joe Louis knew what it was to be defeated. In fact, he famously lost to the German boxer Max Schmeling in 1936, an outcome that was used, as expected, as a propaganda victory for the Nazis' regime claims of ethnic superiority. And in 1938, the two fighters met again, and this time Joe Louis knocked out his opponent in the first round in a historic fight that was filled with social and international overtones. It was this ability to come back from a crushing defeat that defined Joe Louis's character, just as the refusal to accept a death sentence is what sustained Chrysler through its crisis. It is this kind of spirit that will transform Detroit. Our job as leaders is to harness the immense energy that is looking for direction. We owe a lot to the city, and we have a moral obligation to help transform it into a better place. And this is why I've agreed to serve as the 2012 campaign chair for the United Way for Southern Michigan, and I hope some of the area's other business leaders will become personally involved in this effort. It's not a matter of just raising money. Make no mistake, cash keeps the machine running, but I am hoping for a commitment that goes deeper to help sustain and improve the communities where we live and where we work. Now, I want to close by telling you a few things that you may not know about our Jefferson Avenue assembly plant, which is located just a few miles from here. Even before the Fiat-Chrysler alliance was formalized in 2009, I toured the plant. And it gave me pause about entering the relationship, as the factory had suffered obvious industrial neglect during Chrysler's dark days. In the fall of 2009, we shut the plant down for 4 weeks to begin the transformation to world-class manufacturing and to allow for changeover to the all-new Jeep Grand Cherokee. During this time, our 1,251 employees transformed their working conditions. They removed 38 tons of scrap and of debris and applied 7,650 gallons of paint while cleaning and restoring basic working conditions, an effort that allowed them to take ownership of their place of work. Team leaders were trained on WCM processes, and workers identified 308 unsafe conditions that were addressed. By May 2010, we began building the new Grand Cherokee, which has subsequently won more awards than any other SUV in history. It has proved to be a landmark vehicle in our effort to restore credibility to the House. 2 months later, we added a second shift, and we even received a visit from President Obama. In December of 2010, we launched the second product of the plant, the Dodge Durango. And last week, we announced plans to add another 1,100 jobs and a third crew at Jefferson North in early 2013 in order to meet demand for the vehicles that we're building there, including a new diesel version of the Grand Cherokee for North America. And in 2013, we will begin preparing the plant to build a Maserati SUV, which will be powered by a Ferrari engine. This is a story of revitalization in a company that was regarded as irrelevant, set in a city that had been disparaged as a failure. It is just one example how impossible feats of recovery can be achieved if we work together in good faith, realizing that we have a stake in each other's success. Fiat and Chrysler come from two very different pasts, but do have something which is very strong in common. They both have been to hell and back. Both have lived through the experience of being sentenced to death by the press, by the financial world, and by the public at large. Fiat lived it in 2004 and Chrysler just about 3 years ago. But both found the strength and the courage to challenge destiny and to change it. Those who are put to such a test, those who survive, will never be as before. Those who survive, who find the strength to stand and fight, will never be as before. Survivors are different people. They're very special people. And my colleagues and I, the people in this room, are special people. We have learned to look at the future in a different way than before, in a different way than others. We all gain strength from the experience of having been able to overcome adversity. And we don't shy away from making tough decisions, and we're able to adapt to challenges. The decisions that we make today at Fiat Chrysler are informed by the experience of near extinction and a resolve to never again get so close to demise. Everyone at Fiat and at Chrysler has gained an appreciation of each moment in this new life that has been granted to us. We treasure what the experience has given us, an experience which has changed us for good. Because now we all know that ultimately, regardless of circumstances, we have the power to refuse our consent. We have the power and a moral obligation to refuse our consent to decay, to industrial neglect, to wasteful activities, to disengage from competition, because ultimately, consenting to all these things would not only be a denial of our right to life, but it would also be our duty to protect the welfare of our people. What has happened in Detroit is proof certain that fundamental transformation can occur if we have the courage to pursue the challenge of rebuilding. As leaders, it is up to us, both individually and collectively, to choose hope and to strive to make it a reality. Thank you very much.